Buy or sell oil and gas ETF, XOP. First off, read this disclaimer carefully. And do your good deed of the day by liking and subscribing. So we go here to the sectors, energy, and here we have oil and gas, 85% from the 52-week low, minus 12-ish% pullback from the highs. And this ETF got just butchered here on Friday. So it was a brutal end. So let's look a bit closely at this one. So we start here with the charts, big picture, weekly data points, and the fascinating thing that throughout the history of this ETF, these time cycles have been pretty reliable. Rise, decline, rise, decline, rise, decline, rise, decline, rise, decline. But here we did have, a situation where the selling pressure is so ferocious that even though we do actually have a rising cycle within, it very quickly breaks down. But back to the game here: rise, decline, rise, decline, rise, decline, rise, decline, and we supposedly have a rising cycle here. So this phase is extending into late 2022. That's interesting. So there's something potentially bullish here with the time cycles. Another key thing that jumped at me here is that we have this super giga picture long-term horizontal support. So you see, here is the trend line. We test here, we test here, we have support here, we have support here. So literally going back here decades, this level has been long-term support. So yeah, I think that it's interesting from a more speculative, bullish perspective now. You could also argue that we have support here as well. Beyond that, we also here have a very key moving average. The red 200-week moving average has been a big deal level for a long time as support with these blue arrows, but also resistance with the red. We are currently here, right here and right now, testing it as support. I think that there's just too many reasons here to be speculatively bullish. Here are the daily data points. So in this instance, there's more noise here on the dailies. They're just this, but we do still have these horizontal levels. But you could make a case that there is the potentiality here of some kind of something that could play out like time cycles, rise, decline, rise. Potentially we have a bit more of a declining minor time cycle here. Okay. Let's look at the other indicators. If we look here at the PPOs on the weekly data points, yes, we did have a similar high PPO. Let's point here at the blue 100-week moving average back here, but the context is very different. This was a much higher level than we have now. So given the context, it's not the same. Yeah. So let's go here to the daily data points. So in this instance, we have seen some pullback, but the problem here for the bulls is that we have gone down lower in the past. You see here that the low part of the RSI and these PPOs, they have been a better risk-reward buying opportunity. So yeah, but if we do zoom in here a bit and look at accumulation, there's been some decent accumulation throughout this sell-off, and that's pretty interesting. So yeah, there's some conflicting signals. I think that the key thing here for the bullish thesis would be this horizontal support level, and also the major time cycle, which is entering a rising phase. So here are the correlations. So there's only a minus 3-4-ish% correlation with the S&P 500. That is almost like no correlation at all, which is interesting as far as building a market neutral portfolio. We have a 70% positive with crude oil. So it is positive. It is somewhat strong-ish positive, but not like super strong. Some people would probably think that there's like a 90% positive correlation between XOP and crude oil. Obviously, the math is right here in front of us. It's 70%. With natural gas, it is only quote unquote 41%, so positive 41%, not much. And there's only an 8% positive with the dollar index, so very modest correlations here. Looking at the daily data points, these are shorter term correlations. So for some reason, natural gas is not calculated here on the shorter time frame. We do see that there's a 45% positive with the S&P 500, 88% correlation with crude oil, which is more stronger, but you can see that historically this is on the high end of that correlation. It's been, the average has been lower. And then there's a 48% correlation with the dollar index, and that correlation, as you can see, it is on the higher end of the usual range. Okay. Looking at seasonality for the XOP, December is one of the strongest months. That's interesting from a bullish perspective. Over the last 10 years, there's an increase in strength from November to December. And over the last 16 years, there's some increase in strength. January and February are not, much to brag about. The strongest month, obviously, here is March and April. But that is quite far off into the future. Looking at Finviz here, we have the trend lines, some potential support here. When we compare the clean energy ETF, ICLN with XOP, we see something interesting when we look here at the PE ratio. XOP, it has almost, half the PE of what we see here with clean energy. So you could argue there is value here. The dividend is also significantly higher, 1.26% versus 0.67%. So taking all the evidence together, from a very speculative perspective, given the seasonality, given the valuation, and given also what's happening in the energy business, I think we could be speculatively bullish here. The horizontal multi-decade support level is definitively a very clear stop level to look at and have in mind. If it were to break, obviously that would be really bad. But if it holds as a support, that would be a very strongly, at least momentarily bullish signal.